Hey guys, this is indeed a very old case. It's longer than a quarter of a century old. It actually occurred, believe it or not, in the same year that JonBenet Ramsey was murdered, right? This case started in May 1996. May 25th, 1996. I guess you could say even May 26th, because she attended a party and then she at 2 o'clock in the morning she was found passed out on a neighbor's lawn. So I think you really want to say that she disappeared on May 26th, right? She has actually been missing. She's still missing, in fact, for 26 years, 4 months, and 24 days. And she was declared dead in absentia on May 25th, 2002, when she would have been 25 years of age. So it really is a very old case. And I think when you put it in context with the JonBenet Ramsey case, you've got technically an unsolved case there as well. It's very rare that a case like this comes to fruition in the sense that there's justice. If you think about the Adnan Syed case, that feels like the opposite of this case. Someone comes out of jail after, what is it, 22 years, 22, 23 years. Well, now someone's going to jail after 26 years. And the other thing that's quite interesting with this case is just how it fits together in a way with the Scott Peterson case. I've written 3 books on the Scott Peterson case. Scott and Lacey, the fabric of their story is woven into this one to such an extent that for a while they believed that Scott Peterson could be involved in this case. And in fact, the defense, when Paul Flores, the prime suspect, when he was on trial, they wanted to actually call Scott Peterson to kind of say, well, hey, look at him, right? So let's have a look at a couple of images before we get going. Just a quick welcome to Mel Stiller, Git in Sweden, Sharon Tucker, 26 and a half years ago. Bria, good to see you. I'm sure you're relieved that this is earlier than usual. Helen F., Sharon Conroy, and Pauline Buckles, Renee Mitchell. Okay, so let's have a look at some images. So, if you think about the Gabby Petito as well, although she wasn't technically a student. If you think of the Kylie Rodney case, Kylie was about to go to university. Well, KRISTIN Smart was a freshman. She was just 19 years old. So it was also at the beginning of her life that she lost her life. And this has been a very long battle for justice. It's been a very long battle for justice. This was about a year and a half ago. DA charges former classmate following the disappearance. Okay, so we'll come back to those images in a second. So, anyone have any idea what actually solved this case? Nisi says, seems like yesterday, but forever at the same time. So this case really took place at kind of the same time as the 1996 Everest disaster. This case preceded the John Benet Ramsey case by around about 7 or 8 months, right? So it's a really, really old case. And yeah, it's a really old case, and it didn't seem like it was going to be solved really until a year or two ago. There were some major breakthroughs that led to stories like not that one, and not that one. That one, we're going to deal with that in a second. That's from the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, 15th March 2021. Someone actually asked, what are they doing here? We're going to kind of look at that. We're going to look at that, what that's all about. Anyone have any idea what is going on there? But all of this was kind of going down about a year and a half ago. New search warrant served at the home of the suspect's father. And the suspect's father was actually also on trial. He was actually acquitted. Paul Flores convicted, the classmate of KRISTIN Smart. The father also charged, but acquitted by the jury. I think the jury deliberated for 4 days. Okay. So we are going to come back to those images. Let's have a look at some of your comments. That is absolutely right. That is what they're doing. Do you know where they are looking for remains? Deborah says, I have no idea, only that blood was found in the backyard. I'm not sure if I would say backyard. Okay, so let's have a look at the poll. Okay, KRISTIN Smart's body has never been found. Let's have a look at how did they catch and convict Paul Flores. So, okay, KRISTIN Smart's body has never been found. Let's have a look at how did they catch. It's quite a split decision here. 8% say he left inculpatory text messages. That was a little moment ago. That was a much higher number. Now it's the lowest number. Then 11%, 3 more than that, say a ping placed him at the scene. So I think if you're coming here from the Kylie Rodney case, you might think, oh yes, that must be what it is. Remember, this was 26 years ago. There was cell phone technology, but it was sort of in its infancy. 31% say a witness broke her silence. And then just under 50%, that number's being steadily going down. Just under 50% say cadaver dogs. And then there is also, I think Git from Sweden has just said that as well. Nisi says the phone won't let me click on the one that I want. Ria, that is right. That is actually a search under the porch. Let's go back to that. That is actually law enforcement searching under the porch of the home of Paul Flores' father, right? And do you think that they found something there? So they're searching under the porch, and this was 15 March 2021. Do you think they found something there? Let's bring it up a little bit bigger. That is correct. That is also right. Do you think they found something during this search? You see, there's a question there. Is that ground penetrating radar? Someone says, I believe so. Do you think ground penetrating radar solved this case? Suppose I could have put that there. Okay. That is, yeah, it's the deck, it's the patio, right? Okay, so let's kind of get going. So again, just to contextualize all of this, this crime took place almost exactly 2 years after the O.J. Simpson case. So probably the biggest true crime case in terms of media, that this sort of new media landscape where you could have wall-to-wall television or wall-to-wall media was O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson happened on the evening of June 12th, 1994. This case took place just less than 2 years after that. And then it actually predated the Scott Peterson case by about 6 years and 6 months. And, I often talk about intertextuality, right? I often talk about intertextuality, and some people say, well, you really overuse that. I really don't think you should be talking about intertextuality. Well, think about the intertextuality of KRISTIN Smart, a young woman who goes missing and then is never found, well, until now, or let's say never prosecuted until now. And Scott Peterson, who's 6 years later, his wife disappears and she isn't found for quite a long time. But Scott Peterson and KRISTIN Smart went to the same college, Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, right? And was that something that played into Scott Peterson's criminal psychology? It would be hard to imagine that it didn't. It would be hard to imagine that that didn't take place. But what is really happening in some of these cases is the idea of no body, no crime. And think about certain no body, no crime scenarios. Summer Wells, right now, Summer Wells, Suzanne Morphew. You also had Kelsey Bereth, whose killer was prosecuted, even though all they found of her body was a tiny tooth fragment. That's it. They found like a burn patch with plastic and otherwise nothing else. But that was another no body, no crime that turned into a no body, well, actually it is a crime. And so again, you kind of got to ask the question, how on earth could they prosecute this case with no body? Another kind of no body, no crime case is, I suppose you could say, Madeleine McCann. No body, no crime. You could even say in that case, it's argued no body, still alive, right? That sort of absurdity didn't happen in KRISTIN Smart's case, where someone said, actually, I really believe she's still somewhere out there. Maybe she banged her head and she's going to come back home. They didn't really take it that far, right? Mel Stiller says intertextuality is a great way to understand the cases involved independently. You must remember, criminals are just as aware of a lot of these cases as we are, and they may feel like they can learn from them, right? So think also about no body, no crime in the context of Chair Daybell and Laurie Vallow. For a while, it was no bodies, no crimes for a while, right? And so just think about how certain cases were taking place at the same time. Chris Watts may have been thinking about Casey Anthony, thinking, well, I can do a better job than she can. Then Chris Watts committed a crime. Maybe someone looked at him and said, well, I need to get rid of Gannon Stalk. I'm going to do a better job, take Gannon a lot further away. Someone else who was watching looked at that and maybe thought about Suzanne Morphew, and so on and so on, right? A high-profile case isn't only being watched by you, also by criminals. And so wasn't that the case with KRISTIN Smart? Wasn't Scott Peterson watching? Wasn't he? And there was also another case that took place where a woman disappeared in San Francisco Bay that was current to the Scott Peterson case, predating it, but only just predating it. Okay. Oh, what's this doing here? Okay, so let's get going. So incredible news, more than a quarter of a century, as the New York Times puts it. So a quarter of a century is 25 years. This is like 26 years later. And someone was caught, someone was charged, and someone has now just been convicted. That's basically a measure of success. But is justice delayed justice? It feels like you don't really want to criticize right now. You just are sort of grateful. Jeepers, we've had so much going on in true crime that has been frustrating. Cases not coming to trial, some cases not even going to trial. The Suzanne Morphew case, for example, other trials being delayed over and over again. It feels like, wow, this is a victory for once, and it seemed to sort of come out of nowhere. It seems to have been a bit unexpected, right? Okay. Okay, so the part that I want to emphasize here is that we've found or there's been justice in this case, even though her body has never been found. So a jury in California, I think it was yesterday, convicted Paul Flores, a fellow student at the time, of murdering her. That's the New York Times, right? And if you want to know the circumstances in a little bit more detail, just basically that she went to a party, she was discovered drunk and sort of passed out on a lawn by two students who then started to sort of escort her, shepherd her back to her dorm room. Then one of them sort of felt like, I need to go that way. I don't live on campus. I need to go. He then left. And then another one was sort of approaching his dorm, I guess. And then Paul Flores, this man, said, "Hey, don't worry, I'll escort her to her dorm." And then the second person who was helping her sort of allowed that to happen. And then this man, Paul Flores, um, continued to look after this very intoxicated student, and then she was never ever seen again. And so it was no surprise that he emerged as a prime suspect. The surprise was that, well, they never found her remains, and also he seemed to get away with it. They just couldn't kind of link him to her or her to him. So it's kind of like a crazy thing where he was the last person to be with her. Other people knew that, he admitted it, and they still couldn't kind of link the crime to him. And so again, you would ask, what gave him away in the end? What was this thing that they just couldn't find to kind of attach? And part of the answer is her remains. They couldn't link her remains to him. But then another part of the answer is that they actually could, right? Yeah, so if you think about the Kylie Rodney case, this is a kind of a lot like that. This is what the foul play folks want to imagine, is someone came along and they found someone totally intoxicated, and this person opportunistically took some kind of chance, then killed her, and then I guess hid her remains. Well, that's what Paul Flores did. And in the Kylie Rodney case, what's missing are those two students saying, "Yeah, we actually saw some guy who said, 'Don't worry, I'll take care of this.'" You don't have that, right? Instead of the Kristen Smart, how can I put this? Kylie Rodney got in her vehicle and drove off. whereas Kristen Smart couldn't. She was like at the mercy of the people that were around her. In other words, Kristen Smart didn't really have much agency because of the amount of intoxication. Um, Kylie had a little bit more. She was at least able to, get herself out of the area, right? Susanna, good to see you. Yeah, this is next level messed up. But it's a very interesting case in the sense of someone got intoxicated and there was foul play. Someone else was intoxicated, dot, 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 right? So in that sense, this is intertextual to say this is a foul play scenario. What happens in a foul play scenario? Someone may go to a lot of effort to hide the remains, right? And part of it could be, I think what the law enforcement believe is that he actually either committed essay or attempted to commit essay. That's also a part of this. We know that that was not a part of the Kylie Rodney case, right? Because of the autopsy evidence. Okay, I'm gonna I need to just turn the volume off on my phone. So just give me a second. I'll be back in a second. Always forget to do it. Okay, sorry about that. Right, so let me take you guys through. It seems like some of you know about the details better than others, but let me take you through the details. So on the night of May 25th, 1996, it was, and that was on a Memorial Day weekend, right? So obviously a holiday situation. She attended a birthday party. Kristen Smart, she was 19 years old. She attended a birthday party where she didn't know anyone at a fraternity house, right? Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? She went to a party and she didn't know anyone then. You can also bear in mind that she was somewhat younger than the other people at the party. She's a freshman. The others are, at university, and probably many of the people around her were older than what she was, right? Bina says she had to know one person. How'd she end up there? So the other thing that's quite interesting was her friends didn't want to attend the party, which is almost similar with Kylie Rodney. And so they dropped her off. So it was kind of almost a situation where she wanted to go to the party, her friends didn't, and so she remained behind, right?
End.